like
Oh
speech
my
tics
God.
and stuff.
It's
and,
horrible.
Oh man, I wish I had
Dude.
speech therapy now as a 32-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I'm so glad I had speech therapy, and I'm so glad.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. So-
I took speech class,
Yeah.
and I didn't care about it, so
Yeah.
I probably didn't improve myself at all through that class.
It's. I think probably doing it has allowed me to adapt to dialects where I'm at too,
Yeah.
because you had to adapt your dialect to
Yeah.
be able to get it right. So
Yeah.
Well, and I've been just really starting this every week preaching for the past year now, and I'm like, okay, now I really just need to sit down for an hour and just work through some exercises.
There-
because-
Yeah.
There are some words though, like whenever I'm going to break the glass, there are some words though, like the word while. I will never pronounce it right when I'm in the middle of a sentence ever.
Yeah.
And like there's just some words like that have held on from my childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
funny,
you know,
yeah.
it's good times.
That was the reason I didn't post that other video that I told you about,
Yeah.
the not breath one, because
Yeah.
it would have been a glass break for the entire congregation.
Oh, really?
It would have
Oh my
ruined so many
gosh.
things.
Oh, you're the worst.
And I was like, I can't.
I
and
want to
I only
see it.
I can
I wanna
show
see
you,
it, yeah.
but I
Yeah,
only
I'd
see
like
it
to see
because
that.
I edit your videos every week now for the
Right.
last year,
Right.
and so I'm
guys.
super aware
Sorry.
of a lot of those little ones.
Oh, I
so
bet you are.
there's one that's consistent.
When I-
very
when I
good.
I
preached-
love
Anyway.
that.
When I preached a week ago, I had a student come up to me and said, "You said man 13 times."
Oh yeah, man.
Oh man.
I love that.
Crazy, man.
So
Yeah.
welcome.
We've all got those ticks, man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
My thing is
For
like
sure.
I'm still like trying to find my voice, like the way I need to sound.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because I don't know if you guys know this, but we know this, but I am probably the slowest preacher on staff.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
I think
I'm probably
out
the
of us
fastest
three-
preacher on
Out
staff.
of us three,
Yeah.
I don't know, we still have to test that.
I'm just trying to
but-
get my content in 25 minutes, man.
dude.
It's
And
tough.
that's kind
And
of-
Joey's like, "What does time even matter?"
There's a timer. Second
not.
service is beginning. He's still preaching from the last service.
Not-
It's like blinking
Like, who are
red
these-
at
Who
him.
are these people coming into this room? Get out of here! I'm still talking. That happened last week, didn't it? Am I misremembering?
happen.
If you guys like the end of this sermon, you're really going to enjoy the beginning.
Yeah, man, sneak peek.
Oh my god.
I was the fastest preacher at my last church, like to my detriment, to the
Yeah.
congregation's detriment, because they were like, we can't. It was a smaller church, not tiny church, but smaller church in a long-lasting demographic.
Yeah,
there.
right.
And they were often like, we don't know what you're saying.
A long-lasting demographic. Were you saying they were older?
Wasn't that really a generous way to put that? I don't know if any of them watch this. I didn't want
Guys, write that down. Write that down.
it was a legacy church.
I feel like that's almost more offensive than just saying like they were older.
Okay, so a
That's
bunch of
like-
old folks.
I think that's something Dallas would say. Like
No, I would say like
in a
senior
sermon-
saints.
oh yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
You
I would
would
say, like
say
senior
that.
saints.
You would
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that.
Or
Anyway.
or like
I-
a heavier senior population.
Yeah, so the heavy senior population at that church would often say to me,
You
"We
can't
can't
call them
understand
that.
you.
That's
Sorry,
just not nice.
it's inappropriate. I'm
Yeah,
sorry."
now
about
they're
that."
heavy. Wow, Aaron.
Oh, did you say heavier? Is that different? Sorry.
Oh,
Please excuse my vocal tics. I'm not good at this.
I love this. Hey, good morning, Rachel.
I'll do some speech exercises after this.
my
Oh man.
I've noticed that like I'm longer not because of this because of the speed, but really is because I have more breath in the way that I talk.
Okay.
And so like the Wednesday after
Yeah.
I preached and I saw like the reels and the video and
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I got to do something. So I tried a few things and I tried just like stopping and containing each breath. And I saved like probably 7 minutes.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
That's
it was
funny.
Crazy. Yeah.
I think part of it too though is you are trained a pace at Bible college.
Oh
Like-
man. Yeah.
Like you want to make sure that every word
Single
has its
word.
own space so that people can keep up with you. And then you get into like the real world. And
like I have so much to say. in
yeah,
so little time.
I mean, and you look at how people have conversations, and you realize like
Yeah.
the pauses are much more
Yeah.
and stuff. So that's a thing. Not that I do it necessarily right. I would venture to say I probably go too fast. And that's proven by the fact that whenever I pull up and I'm listening to an audiobook, Mark Landis makes fun of me for listening to it at hyperspeed.
so fast.
And I'm like, it feels so normal to me.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. I think that's part of it for me too. Is I'm processing it so much faster than I'm saying it,
Yeah.
and so I feel like I'm talking at a snail's pace when I'm talking at a normal,
Yeah.
speed. And so I'm up there and I'm like, well, I don't want to bore these people, so I got to pick this up. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I get about halfway through the sermon, and then I've realized that I've spent half of my time on a quarter of the sermon, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go.
I felt that way yesterday.
I
I
go.
didn't actually, but I felt that way. I got through like one of the teaching blocks, and I was like, I thought that was not even halfway. I've got like 5 minutes left. But then it was almost the next steps, and I was off. But
Rachel
anyway.
says to me, Aaron preaches fast, not in a bad way. He just fits a lot of words in / information into the time.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm just articulate. That's the word you can use. Thank you. Tell your friends.
And clear.
Is he?
tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
So if you've been hearing beeping, by the way, I want to acknowledge the beeping in the room because
Please, somebody has to.
yeah, Night to Shine is start over. Night to Shine decorating is happening right now.
Yes.
And so like it's begun. The lift is out. It's all kinds of fun is happening in the event center.
You might not hear it at all, but we definitely do.
Yeah, we definitely
Right
do.
out that window.
Yeah,
What can you do?
it's great. Hey, we're excited about it. There's
Yeah.
some lighting going up today.
I'm so excited for NYR. Like, I didn't get to go last year.
NYR.
Going MYR this
Oh
year?
my god. Sorry.
Here,
Out
hand
of
this to Joey. He needs a hit.
Shine. Night to shine. Listen, we're talking about speaking right now, and I'm like, it's gotten me. Night
You're in your
to
head about it.
shine. Night to shine. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm so excited. I got COVID
Well, that
last
makes
year.
more sense.
Yeah.
And, I've gotten my COVID out of the way this year. So.
Yeah, you did
Yeah,
just
you
a week
did.
ago. That's
Yeah,
good
way to
news.
I actually laughed about that to myself. I was like, every year.
Yeah, man.
Every year.
Yeah.
Like, which.
Yeah. No, Night to Shine's so awesome, and I'm taking on a little new role with it this year. I'm excited for, and yeah, it's a secret I can't tell you.
I have to tell you
Very
though
mysterious.
that I replaced you.
Good. That's great
We were
news.
gonna
Are you
do
snack
snack
cart
cart
guy?
together. and,
Please text Todd Tellman and tell him who you
yeah,
replaced
I
me
need to
with.
do that. Because me and my friend Caleb are going to wear suits.
Yeah, you got to.
And
That's
and
the
do it
rules.
together.
That'll be good.
That's the rules. So
That'll be good.
that'll be a lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so super looking forward to that and everything that is. If you are volunteering at Night to Shine, if you have thank you. And if you do have the opportunity to step out to the red carpet for 5 minutes,
Oh man,
do it.
it's worth a watch.
Yeah, it's so great.
Even just for a couple of minutes, it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So Aaron, yesterday we were talking about temptation, and anticipation changes temptation. Great, by the way. I want to touch on the part that I want to touch on is something you said it, and I say it a lot. And you know how the sermons are born in our own hearts.
Oh, yeah.
Right. As God does the work within us first.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about that because I think that when you're on a topic, especially like temptation,
Yeah.
you know, it's really easy to just say you the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you did a good job of saying, okay, I could say you, but let's say we,
Yeah.
you know, yesterday.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I think that that's something that people, that's something that more pastors need to, communicate, I think, to their congregations. I think that maybe this is old school, but I don't think it's old school. I think it's still very, very, very common. You know, when you because I can go to a church and tell, like, is this pastor performing like who they think they need to be,
Yeah.
or are they being who they like have been created to be?
Yeah.
And I think that there's this temptation in ministry to perform who you think you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
yeah. And so I appreciated that you took a minute, even without acknowledging what your own weaknesses necessarily were,
Yeah.
just to say, hey, I have them too, and I wrestle with this too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought about getting into specifics, and with the 25 minutes especially, but even with 30 minutes, it just feels like if I spend too much time talking about my struggles, it takes away from what I'm trying to say as a whole in that conversation.
Well, yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think you can talk about like this would be my perspective. My perspective would be if you did, you would have to pick one.
Right. Yeah,
You
and
know what I
even
mean?
in that, it just felt like I would have to spend too much time on it to give it enough air to make sense.
Yeah.
And to feel relatable to people, you know? And so I didn't want to, I thought about it. And part of one of the things that I considered talking about is not even necessarily, maybe not what we would call sinful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I know it's outside of what God wants for me. And so in that sense, it is outside of his design.
Yeah.
But my natural propensity towards like self-retreat, I talked about this in a small group last night, that when I feel unhealthy or emotionally stressed or whatever it is, I'll just retreat inward and just live in my head.
Yeah.
And so I know that I have that tendency in me. And one of the things I considered talking about that I had written in my script at one point was talking about the idea of how I'm building right now, because I learned about this within the last month about myself. How I'm building the guardrails around me to give my wife permission to notice that and then call it out in me and be like, you need to come back into the real world because you're daydreaming. Like I can see it in your eyes that you're not here.
Yeah.
And because I'll do that to whether it's like self-numbing or whatever it is, it pulls me out of the stress or the frustration that I'm feeling. I can push that down and not deal with it.
Yeah.
And then kind of live in this happy space in my head because that's you talked about the facade. That's like my archetype. It's like, it's like I'm a positive person, but my positivity a lot of times is just a mask of positivity.
Yeah.
That I think is actually positive. Like I've deceived myself into believing that I am actually feeling fine about everything.
Yes.
And I don't even recognize there's something in me that's so broken that I've pushed down so far that's like, you know, I think. So anyway.
Yeah, but you know, I think the way that I've seen things like that handled maybe the best. It was I was reading a book last year. I can't remember the title of it right now. But the guy was talking about like his sin issue of pride. You know, whatever. And he's like, and that's so pastoral to say, like, because if you stand on a stage and talk for money, you deal with pride. Like, you know what I mean? Sure. Like, that's a thing. And whatever. And so he's like, that's so pastoral. He's like, but whenever I tell you that what that leads itself into is me like yelling at my kids when they disappoint me. You know what I mean? Or like what that leads me into is like me trying to treat myself as greater than I am within my own house and looking at my wife as less than occasionally. You know what I mean? And like he just was able to say like two very simple, like where he could say that, you know, you could say this isn't an issue. Like, of course it's an issue, but it's not an issue, but it really is, you know? And I thought he did a good job of like very concisely laying
that's
out.
good. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
That would have been good.
It was John Mark Comer. I just can't can't remember the book. Yeah, I just can't remember the book. Title. But yeah, it was super good. You know, I think though maybe where I'm at with this, and maybe this conversation today. I mean, I know that it's probably mainly our church people that are going to pay attention to it. But I think for me, it's like the conversation is that it brings out for me is like just encouraging. I think pastors, like if you're at a place that you can't be authentic. You could go to a place where you could be. And if you can't be authentic because you feel like your church needs a hero, they already have a really good one in Jesus. They don't need you to be that. You know, and like
there's no grace in that.
You know, maybe that's where I'm at from that. That was for me, like that moment. I was like, I'm really glad you got there. Yeah. So that wasn't even the whole point of the sermon, but I was glad you got there.
Yeah. And that was in lieu of trying to find a way to work my specific issues into it. I leaned really hard into the I'm the worst of sinners because I really, you know.
That was good. That was well done. Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah.
And that was, for me, that was really where I wanted to land that whole concept is like, I could even tell you about my specific struggles, but like it's way worse than that.
Yeah, right.
It's so much worse than I could even describe on
Right.
the stage, because I can't tell you everything that goes through my head. Even as I'm
Exactly.
talking to you right now, the thoughts that I'm having, like
Right,
I can't get into all of that.
Yeah.
But I know it, and I am a mess. and
Right.
God is still using me.
Yeah.
And so that was, I thought,
Well,
where I wanted to take that idea.
It's my favorite part of Paul, because Paul
Yeah, man.
always remembers where he started, and I
Yeah.
think that's why he had such a passion for helping people become followers of Christ,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
like Paul was not a pastor in the way that we think of, like, you know what I mean? Like he's not going to be somewhere for 30 years.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that wasn't, he's like, I'm going to go start a church so that more people can love Jesus. And when it started, I'm going to set someone else there who can babysit it, and I'm going to go start another one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like that was just his thing. And
Yeah.
I think it was because he knew who he was without Christ
Yeah.
and never forgot it.
Yeah.
You know, and even still talked about his current struggles, even in his writings, and it's super good.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
know,
we had some really good discussion in small group.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I feel like our younger generation really deals with temptations, and like we're just in a culture where like every desire, because that's all temptation is a desire. I want to do something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Every desire can be filled, you know, like
Yeah.
that's the culture that we live in. That's no shocker. And so I just feel like, you know, our discussion was really good. And one thing that we kind of talked about that like kind of took the sermon to another step was that like we just kind of talked about the goal.
Yeah.
You know, like what is the goal in your journey with temptation?
Yeah.
And we talked about how like a lot of times when we deal with temptation, and it was this concept of like building trust. I love the way that you put like traps and
Yeah.
Opportunities.
tests.
Yeah.
You know, like the whole thing is an opportunity, and God like doesn't tempt us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that had been a new perspective for me. I feel like not that I believe that God tempted us, but I just didn't see it in the way that you presented it. And I thought it was really good and very clear of like, God does give you opportunities in which in those opportunities you could fail, but the desires that lead you into failure are not from God.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Because God is trying to give you opportunities to show your faith. And I think working through the garden or the Genesis 3
Mhm.
was such a great like primary example of that. Like this is the first time it happened. And so, but anyways, so all of that to say, like the biggest thing for us, I think when we were talking about how does temptation, like how do our tests turn into traps in the midst of temptations? Honestly, for us, it was like, and specifically for me too, like it was my own self, right? Like me trying to pass the test
Oh,
and
sure.
to like will myself out of temptation, which if you grow up in the church, or I guess this is just a lot of us, is that like when we see a need in our lives, we're just like, okay, I just have to not do this.
Mm.
Right. And on top of that, your test in your mind becomes, am I going to do this, fall into this temptation or not? Or am I going to avoid it?
Yeah.
But that's not the test. The test is not, are we going to do this or not? The test is, are we going to rely on God?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think you hit on in your sermon, is like the goal is to rely in Jesus.
Yeah.
And because like we don't have to define ourselves by these temptations and these trials and these, you know, and really the law, the
Mhm.
things that we say we need to do and not do, because Jesus died on the cross for that. You know, he did that. And you went into how he lived perfectly. He did what we could not. And so really like the goal for us is to rely on his strength and his power in this moment, rather than just trying to not do this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
how about I just sit in Jesus? Like,
Yeah.
and oftentimes I think we rely on God's strength and we pray for it, but then we go right back to, okay, now God has strengthened me, so I just can't do this.
Yeah. So, Jackie Hill Perry talks about that in Gay Girl, Good God, and so she talks about like the American church's fixation on like this specific sexual sin in that book, but just our fixation on like wanting to. We want to rid ourselves of sin, so we focus on this sin, right?
Yeah.
Like let's not do this. I'm just going to focus on this thing, and I'm that way I'm stronger than it, whatever it is. It could be anything. And she's like, why would you do that to yourself? Like all you're thinking about is the thing that you don't want to do. You know what I mean? She's like, and so in the book, she's like, what would be actually be better? Just focus on Christ. Like just make him your focus, becoming like him, make that your focus to be like Christ.
Yeah.
And then when that sin comes up, you have now this metric to go like, is this like him? Like I've been focused, kind of the way that like people who look for counterfeit bills don't actually study counterfeit bills. They study real ones, like then they can notice a counterfeit right away. It's that same thing. And so, I think that's really, that's really good.
Yeah,
It's
I think
huge.
that's anticipating the better gift. Like you have to know that there's something better for you.
Yeah.
Even before that
Yeah.
temptation, but in the midst of it, you have to know, this thing looks appealing, but there's a better version of it that I can find
Yeah.
full fulfillment in Christ. And that's like your example of Genesis. I wish we could have gotten into it, but like when they saw and took the fruit, they were trying to take God's wisdom for themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
But God wanted to give them his wisdom.
Yeah.
He just had a different way of doing it.
You
know?
will
Like,
you will be like God.
Yeah.
You mean the one who created me in his image and likeness?
and is making me more like him.
I
Like
will
that-
be like him.
That like God partnering with humans to rule his creation and giving them the wisdom to do so was his design from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so Satan shows up and is like, hey, I've got this easy way to get God's wisdom.
Right.
And you can just take it right now for yourself.
Right.
And they're like, okay, we
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
And that's the same, like if you decide that that thing in the moment is enough, it's not. And you're going to feel that right afterwards, and they sure did. But if you can anticipate, well, God has a different way for me to experience this thing, and it's actually going to be way better than this experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And instead of focusing on, man, can I resist this immediate form of wisdom? Can I resist taking the fruit that's right in front of me right now?
Yeah.
Instead of like trying to wrestle with that, like you guys are saying, just pivot right into, no, there's something way better.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus did in the wilderness. You know, it says is the same. It's the so anyway.
Yeah. So good.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, we probably need to hop off here, y'all. It's 10:04.
That flew by.
10:04 effectively. So, Hey, everybody who's watching, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you were here yesterday, that's great. If you weren't here yesterday, go watch online. And
Dude,
pay
this is a good
attention.
This series
I like
is
the series a lot.
terrifying. That's what I've been thinking. Is like,
James,
man, we're talking about anxiety. We're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about
It's heavy stuff,
temptation
man.
now.
I'm talking about anger on
Anger
Sunday. I'm getting ready for the
I'm
hate
really
mail
looking
already.
forward to that,
I'm
honestly.
just like,
Yeah.
dude.
Every time I talk about anger, someone undoubtedly messages me and says, "I'm so angry that you talked about that." I'm like, "Dude, this is great."
I'm so looking forward to it because I am someone who for years would have said I'm not angry. I don't deal with anger. I don't struggle with it. And then I learned that I am actually really sneakily angry.
Oh yeah.
And it comes out in passive aggression.
man.
It comes out in resentment, and it's all
Yeah.
this other, hidden stuff. But I'm really looking forward to hearing
James,
about anger.
the book of James, man, it's a lot of people I know, a lot of mature believers I know. They're like, James is my favorite book of the Bible, and I think it's because they just love to have the snot beat out of them.
Yeah. Sometimes you need it, man. Sometimes you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Anyways, we'll see y'all later. Bye bye.
See ya.